Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolutely incredible world of organ transplantation. And we're not just going to look at it as some sterile medical procedure, we're going to see it through the eyes of a patient in their very real fight for life. It's a question you hope you never have to ask. But for so many people, it's a terrifying reality. When a part of your body that you depend on, your heart, your liver, your lungs, starts to fail, well, the clock starts ticking. The journey that comes next is one of the most intense, high-stakes dramas in all of modern medicine. All right, let's get into it. So our story really begins here. It's that critical moment where a patient is told they have terminal organ failure. You can imagine, at a stage like this, it feels like all the doors are closing. But there is one path forward, one single treatment that can actually turn the tide. And that one treatment is organ transplantation. But look, this is so much more than just an operation. It's this mind-blowingly complex field that lives at the intersection of three huge areas of science. You've got the surgery, of course, but then you have immunology, which is the science of your body's own defense system, and pharmacology, the drugs that are absolutely crucial to making the whole thing work. It truly is the last and best hope. Okay, so once the decision to go for a transplant is made, a whole new phase kicks off. And believe me, it is a race against time. The challenge isn't just finding any organ, it's about finding the right organ. This part of the journey is this incredibly precise scientific quest for the perfect match. To really get this, you gotta know there are different kinds of transplants. First, you've got autotransplantation. That's where the donor and the recipient are the same person. A skin graft is a perfect example. Then there's xenotransplantation, which is really on the cutting edge of science. We're talking transplants between species, like a pig heart into a human. But for our patient, and for the vast majority of cases, it all comes down to allotransplantation, a life-saving gift from one human being to another. And that right there brings us to the single biggest hurdle in this whole process. See, your immune system, it's like this highly trained, incredibly sophisticated security force. Its entire purpose, its one and only job, is to identify and destroy anything it thinks isn't you. So a new organ, even one that's going to save your life, is immediately flagged as a foreign invader. So how in the world do doctors find a match that the body won't just immediately reject? Well, it comes down to this super important three-step process. First up, you've got the basics. Blood group compatibility. Simple enough. Second, they run a cross-match test. This checks to see if the recipient's blood already has antibodies that are just ready and waiting to attack the donor organ. And third, the most detailed step, HLA phenotyping. Now, don't think of this as just a fingerprint. It's more like a really complex security code. The goal is to find a donor key that fits the recipient's lock as closely as humanly possible. The better that fit, the better the odds. So let's fast forward. A match has been found, the surgery was a success, amazing news. But in a lot of ways, the real fight is just getting started. The battle moves from the operating room to the cellular level. Now the patient's body has to be convinced to accept this life-saving foreigner. Right, so here's the bottom line. Even with all that careful matching, the immune system is still on high alert. It's suspicious. It still sees that new organ as an invader, and its natural, hardwired response is to attack it. That attack is what doctors call rejection. And rejection isn't just one thing. It can happen in a few different ways. Think of it as three potential battles. First is hyperacute rejection. This is a massive, all-out attack that happens within minutes or hours. Then there's acute rejection. This can flare up in the first days or weeks as the immune system soldiers, the T cells, go on the offensive. The good news here is that this one can often be reversed with therapy. And finally, you have chronic rejection. This is more like a long, slow war of attrition over months or even years that just gradually wears down the new organ. So to manage this constant threat, you need a truce, a kind of peace treaty between the body and the new organ. And for the patient, maintaining that truce isn't a temporary thing. It becomes a lifelong commitment, a whole new daily reality. And these are the tools of that peace, immunosuppressants. These are powerful drugs that work by basically telling the immune system to just calm down. There are different kinds, like calcineurin inhibitors, which block key immune cells, anti-proliferative agents that stop them from multiplying so fast, and of course, corticosteroids to bring down inflammation. They all work together to form a protective shield around that precious new organ.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It gets right to the human side of the science. For a transplant patient, it's not just about swallowing medicine. Every single pill is a conscious act. It's a daily reminder of the incredible gift they've received and of the fragile, delicate balance they now have to maintain to keep it.
So, our patient is on the road to a new life, but their individual journey is part of a much, much bigger story. So, let's zoom out now and look ahead to the future of this entire field and the incredible challenges that scientists are working to solve as we speak. The single biggest challenge, the great problem facing transplantation today, is a simple and frankly heartbreaking fact: there is a critical shortage of donor organs. The demand just massively outstrips the supply. So the ultimate goal, the solution that scientists are chasing, is absolutely revolutionary. What if we didn't have to wait for a donor? What if we could just create new organs from scratch? One of the most mind-bending paths to get there is 3D bioprinting. I mean, forget printing with plastic or metal. Imagine a printer that uses a patient's very own cells as a kind of biological ink. The goal here is to literally print, layer by layer, a living, working organ. And because it's made from the patient's own material, you know what that means? It would be a perfect match. No rejection, ever. Another equally amazing technique is called decellularization. This is kind of like biological architecture. Scientists take a donor organ, maybe from an animal, and they gently wash away all the original cells that would cause rejection. What you're left with is the organ's natural protein scaffold, its perfect empty framework. Then, they repopulate that scaffold with the patient's own cells, essentially building them a brand new custom organ on the original blueprint. Just incredible. These technologies, they promise a future without waiting lists, without the fear of rejection. It's a medical utopia, in a way. But they also leave us with this really profound final question. If we get to the point where we can just print our own replacement parts, where we can rebuild our own bodies, how does that change the way we think about the limits and maybe even the very meaning of a human life? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.